Mrs. Meng.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member Cartwright. Thank you, Attorney General Garland. I wanted to ask about a bill of mine that was signed into law in 2021, the COVID-19 Hate Crimes Act, which directs the Attorney General to provide guidance to state and local law enforcement agencies to bolster reporting of hate crimes. I was glad to see that the President's budget request for fiscal year 25 requests $10 million for community-based approaches to prevent and address hate crimes, a grant program that I authored in fiscal year 2022. I want to take this opportunity to thank you for your leadership in responding to violent crime and specifically hate crimes in the U.S. in the last several years. It means a great deal to Asian Americans and so many historically underserved communities to have a president and an attorney general who cares deeply about these issues. I wanted to ask a question that I also asked FBI Director Christopher Wray in last week's hearing. I'm concerned by the trend of a decrease in the number of local law enforcement agencies providing the FBI with incident data. This is the 5th year in a row that the number of local agencies providing data to the FBI has declined. I know that the decline may partially be due to the transition that agencies are making to the NIBRS system, but what additional resources does the DOJ need to support local and state law enforcement agencies using NIBRS? And I'd like to also hear more from you about other ways that the DOJ is actively working to support local law enforcement agencies in reporting hate crimes.
Yeah, well, thank you for the question, and this is a high priority for us. I do think that, as the FBI director suggested, that much of the problem is just a transition problem from one form of statistical compilation to another. But of course, all of our information has to come from state and local communities. And so what we have to do is reach out to them constantly to ensure that they are providing the numbers. The FBI and our Office of Justice Programs and Bureau of Justice Assistance have sort of identified the places that have been less compliant than they should be and are trying to reach out to encourage that level of compliance. I think the money we have in the budget is sufficient for those kind of reach out programs. But we won't be satisfied until all the crimes are reported.
Thank you. And just to follow up, as you've said, state and local law enforcement agencies play a crucial role in the nationwide response to hate crimes. But I also want to make sure to ask about how the DOJ works with community-based organizations, which also have a crucial part in building up community resilience and preventing future hate crimes. Can you talk about how the DOJ is coordinating with both law enforcement and local organizations to respond to hate crime?
Yeah, so each of our U.S. Attorney's offices has a civil rights and hate crimes coordinator, and each of the U.S. attorneys has been instructed to reach out to the communities to have discussions well in advance of any crisis occurring. You know, our strategy here is to develop trust within communities before something bad happens, so that if something bad happens, the community trusts law enforcement. These are joint meetings of the U.S. Attorney's offices and our various law enforcement components. As I know you know well, we have a United Against Hate campaign that the U.S. Attorney's offices are implementing and have been implementing for the past couple of years to reach out to communities in just the way that you said, so that federal law enforcement, state and local law enforcement, and communities can cooperate and work together. I've attended one of those meetings in Denver. And I've attended a couple of other meetings of community outreach in other places, including in St. Louis.
Thank you so much. And I'll quickly ask about another question about the aftermath of the China initiative. As we all know, in February 2022, the end of the China initiative was announced. And previously, an unacceptably high number of these cases ended in drop charges, dismissals, and acquittals because prosecutors could not prove allegations. Chinese American researchers and scholars who made valuable contributions in so many fields in this country for decades, reported feeling targeted by a racial profiling campaign. I want to be clear, as a member of this subcommittee, I am fully supportive of the DOJ's real and necessary work to combat espionage by adversarial governments. But just want to make sure, how does the DOJ ensure that agents working on these investigations, number one, avoid wasteful investigations into legitimate academic research? And second, how is the DOJ also educating the institutions themselves and the public about the real national security threats and how they can best defend themselves and our country from these threats?
So, as you pointed out, we now have a consolidated section in the National Security Division to address the threats posed by the People's Republic of China, Russia, North Korea, and Iran, focusing our attention on all the myriad ways in which these adversaries attempt to either attack us from a cyber point of view, present efforts to harass dissidents in the United States, steal our personal identifying information and our technology. So to take the latter part of your question first, that's the way in which we're doing that. And then each U.S. Attorney's Office has a national security coordinator, and the FBI has joint terrorism task forces in each of its 54 districts. As to the more general question, we have a robust review process. All national security cases have to touch base with the National Security Division, which can review to ensure that the principles of federal prosecution, which determine which kinds of prosecution should be brought and which kinds shouldn't, are done. I want to emphasize that we do not prosecute based on the ethnicity of any person. We are only looking to prosecute people who are working for our adversaries in an effort to injure the United States. But that is not in any way a part of the ethnicity of people in the United States.
Thank you. I yield back.
Thank you. That concludes the first round of questions. I know the general needs to be through here by 12 noon.